Welcome back to 40 TV with your host 40. Sorry for the short break. Been sidetracked working on another project. I've made some changes to the track we've been working on. I've taken some things out. I've added a bell effects. Just really wasn't feeling the way that track was developing. In fact, I'm changing the workflow of these tutorials on 40 TV. I was kind of making them up as I go without finishing the track beforehand. This time, I'm actually going to finish this track before you see another tutorial after this one. And I'm basically going to deconstruct it into many smaller tutorials, going over everything from arrangement, when the breakdown should happen, what kind of things you might include in a breakdown, build-ups, white noise sweeps, more side chaining, more effects. We're going to talk about mixing. We're going to talk about mastering, the works, right? So definitely stay tuned. There will be a short gap between this tutorial and the next one, but I promise to finish the track soon. I'm definitely digging where it's going right now. I've made several modifications. I've changed the bass pattern to make it a little more intro friendly. I've separated all my drum parts and then grouped them, and I'm going to show you all this stuff in a second. I've added a bell effects. I've removed some of the other stuff, some of the other effects we did, except for the Vox stutter. But I've changed some of the things on the Vox stutter, and I'll show you that in a second too. So let's talk about, one of the subscribers did point out that there is a group function, and that's correct. I did show you how to send multiple tracks to another audio track in order to add effects. You can also do that with the grouping function. And to group one or more tracks, yeah, that's right, one or more tracks, you would highlight one or more tracks by holding down Shift and selecting 2, 3, 4, etc. tracks. You can press Command G or Control G on a PC to group these tracks. I'll group these to show you as an example. When I group them, I'm able to trigger them by selecting one scene, which I can press the play, which will play both of these tracks. I can also rename this by pressing Command R or Control R on a PC, and maybe we'd name it Effects. I can ungroup these tracks by selecting the group and pressing Command Shift G. This stuff is also available in the Edit menu under Group Tracks and Ungroup Tracks. It allows you to do the same thing and achieve the same results by adding effects to multiple tracks. So if you want to compress them as one, if you want to add the same delay, if you want to set their mix levels and control their level via one master fader, you would do it that way. So thanks for pointing that out. So let me show you some of the things that we've changed. I did change on the bass track. We left the Silent as being one of the synths. I ended up switching the other one to Massive by Native Instruments. I did change the pattern. Let me show you what the pattern looks like. This pattern lends itself for some introductory notes. These first two notes right here played without these notes can be played maybe in the beginning of the track to build it up, right, before the first main phrase happens. So I'll switch back over. Let me go ahead and play what this sounds like, the new pattern. I'll play the bottom end first. Okay, and then the top end added to the bottom, or by itself, and then together. You'll notice I mixed the top end a little bit lower. You can add this, raise it up if you want, but I just wanted to punch a little on the top. So I'll stop both clips. What I did with the drum with the drum track is I grouped them. You can collapse and expand groups with this little triangle right here. If we expand this, we'll see that I deconstructed the kit by adding the kick, the snare. I did add a white noise snare to layer it with the snare. I'll let you hear what that sounds like. The hi-hats are all separated. The percussion hit is separated and currently muted. I'm not sure I'm going to keep it, that's why. And I added a bass accent. This bass accent is actually the same Silent playing, playing the notes, just hitting on the kick, right? I then side chained those notes. So, for example, if I stop all clips here and I play the kick, I scroll up, and I add this bass accent, you notice it gives it a little more punch. Obviously, you heard the kit before, but I'll show you what this white snare is doing. The way I achieved the white snare is Operator has a white noise filter. If we arm this track to record, we can audition it by pressing one of the keys on the keyboard. The reason we're not going to hear it is because of the gate. I'll turn it off. And so that's now generating white noise. There is an old white noise loop. You can't see it. It's cut off on the screen. But I like the noise white, which is called there. So this is actually being played, if we look, throughout the whole bar. And then basically I added a gate, and that gate is sidechaining to the snare. So whenever the snare hits, it's letting sound come through, or it's allowing the sound to come through, the white noise sound to come through. Now, how many times have I said that, right, guys? I must be tired. And then obviously I mix it down a little bit. You can play with the settings here. This is the threshold in which the gate should enact. This is how much dB of reduction should happen when the gate is not being active. And then you have attack, hold, and release times. Definitely read up on it. And we'll talk about it more in a later tutorial. But together they sound like this. And the whole drum kit. Let's add that bass group. So I'm going to collapse the group here and play the bass group with the drum group. You guys remember the Vox stutter. I ended up going with a simple delay and modifying a few seconds, such as the feedback, the dry wet. I also put the delay time to happen on the third and the fifth note. It ended up sounding something like this. So pretty cool there, right? Switch over. This bell echo, I think I made this this sound inside of the FM8. And then I bounced it to audio, and I should have saved the MIDI track, but I didn't because I was coming up with all different types of changes. One of the things that I added here was a EQ to take out some parts that were almost sound like they were clipping. The way I found out which frequencies, obviously you can sweep to find them, but that was a little more difficult. So one of the things you can do is come over here to the effects, scroll down to spectrum, and if I drop spectrum in over here and I turn the EQ off, in fact, let's turn off all the effects just so you can hear what this sounds like. Make sure I stop all the clips here, and I'll play the loop. You can almost, depending on your speakers, you can hear in the top end. If I enlarge the spectrum and I play again, you can see right here, definitely right here, we got some problem frequencies. So what I ended up doing is creating a shelf with a drop off in the top end. And if we enable this, you notice that chopped or cut sound that sounds like it's clipping is pretty much gone. Then what I ended up doing, so I can go ahead and delete the spectrum, is I introduced a gate to give it some rhythmic movement beyond just the sound of this loop. And what I wanted it to do was to vibe with this bass group, right? So I'm going to solo this track, play the bass group, and then enable the gate. If I didn't have the bass group playing, it's not going to be receiving information for the sidechain. So, whoops, let me turn it off first, and I'll turn it on while they're playing. So it gives it that cool stutter effect that's actually matching our bass pattern. This is something that you definitely have to play with. Again, if you want information on a particular effect, you can read up in Ableton's manual. I'll talk more about it in another tutorial because gates are definitely pretty powerful. They're typically used, for example, when recording live drums. If you you have a mic on a snare, for example, it may be picking up some of the sounds from the other mics of that drum kit. So you'd use a gate to gate out certain sounds. So continuing, after I gated it, then I added a compressor. And you guys know what a compressor is. And after I added a compressor, I added an auto pan. Now the auto pan I set to a really low amount. This is how often it's panning from left to right. So 20%, pretty low. And at what rate? The rate is 0.12 hertz, so really, really slow from left to right. This information is being panned. It makes the loop a little bit interesting. We talked about this before. You definitely want to switch up everything. Even though I created this loop out of a synthesizer, you want to make sure that you still switch it up, right? So this is a sound that obviously no one else has. I'll go ahead and play all of the clips by selecting scene 1 and pressing play. It would help if I unsolo, right? So we definitely got a banger on our hands, huh? All right, so hope you enjoyed this video. I understand it wasn't so much a tutorial as to show you where I'm at and talk about where we're going. I plan to finish this track. Hopefully, I've got a friend coming to visit from out of town this weekend, but hopefully within a week the track will be done and I'll be able to start on subsequent tutorials. And we'll go from there. But definitely thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate your subscriptions. I appreciate you watching the videos. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to comment or shoot me a message on 40tv.com. Hope you have a great one. Bye-bye.